Imagine you had a tireless refractive fellow who could look at every single pentacam scan, never got sleepy, and whose default was, when in doubt, don't cut. Would you let that fellow screen your patients? That's what we studied in our paper entitled AI-Powered Decision-Making in Refractive Surgery, investigating the capability of GPT-4o to interpret pentacam data in assessing LASIK eligibility. As it is, LASIK is already mature tech, but LASIK screening is still very much an art. One surgeon might say, okay for LASIK, while another might say to the same patient, PRK na lang. Meanwhile, ChatGPT has been everywhere lately. So it got us thinking if it could possibly help with LASIK screening. The question isn't, can AI replace us? Because, frankly, it shouldn't. Rather, the real question is simpler. Can AI be used as a consistent second reader that makes screening safer without slowing us down? Our objectives were simple. We aimed to compare the LASIK eligibility assessments of GPT-4o against two refractive surgeons and to characterize discrimination, calibration, agreement, and directional biases. The methodology was designed to be a retrospective, single-center, per-eye study that included 453 eyes from 233 patients, screened from June to December of 2024. We took the Belline ambrosia and the 4-map pentacam displays with some demographic info and the eye's refraction, de-identified them with a script, then incorporated them into a standardized prompt. We then fed this prompt into GPT-4o and made it determine whether or not a case was eligible for LASIK. Because these AI models can be variable, each eye was prompted 3 times. Then, we took a majority vote. 2 independent refractive surgeons, one more tenured than the other, gave binary judgments for each case, either eligible or ineligible. We then compared these with the AI's decisions. Then we prompted all 3 raters, including the AI, to give a decision confidence score from 0 to 100. And these were our findings. First, how permissive was each rater? Surgeon 1 approved 85.9% of eyes. Surgeon 2 approved 53.6%. GPT-4o only 45.7%. So, even before any further analysis, the model is already more conservative than both surgeons. Versus Surgeon 1, GPT-4o was highly specific and had a very high PPV, but only moderate sensitivity and accuracy. Translation? The model is kuripot with saying yes. Basically, these show that GPT-4o is a stricter screener than Surgeon 1. It lessens the chance of causing ectasia, but, in effect, lowers the conversion rate to LASIK. The ROC area under the curve was 0.748, indicating moderate discrimination. Now, to minimize confusion, area under the curve is not accuracy. It combines sensitivity and specificity to see how well the AI can distinguish the eyes that the surgeon assessed as eligible or ineligible. That means if I randomly pick a pair of eyes from the sample, one that Surgeon 1 said is eligible and one ineligible, the AI will distinguish the higher eligibility score to the approved eye about 75% of the time. Meanwhile, versus Surgeon 2, who's stricter, the metrics were more balanced overall, meaning the AI's strictness was similar to Surgeon 2. The AUC was 0.655, indicating weak discrimination, meaning the AI can still distinguish good candidates from bad better than chance, but not very strongly, at around 66% of the time, mainly because Surgeon 2 was more conservative, so the yes and no cases were harder to tell apart. In the McNemer analysis, a clear pattern emerges. Against Surgeon 1, the AI almost never gave a false eligible, but it disqualified a lot more true eligible corneas, 184. That huge difference is why the p-value is less than 0.001. Versus Surgeon 2, we see the same safety bias. A little smaller, but still stricter than Surgeon 2 and still significant. So, the bias is clear. The AI consistently errs conservative and tends to disqualify more than the surgeons. For the kappa agreement metric, which looks at how aligned the raters were with each other, the overall Fleiss kappa across all 3 raters was 0.23, which falls in the fair agreement range. Pairwise, the Cohen's kappa values were also in the fair range across the board, including between the 2 surgeons. This indicates that the AI doesn't strongly agree with either surgeon, but the 2 surgeons also don't strongly agree with each other. Across 3 prompts per eye, the AI was consistent. ICC was 0.84, meaning if we re-ask it, the decisions pretty much stay the same. The confidence calibration slope for both surgeons stayed near 1, meaning the AI's self-rated confidence matched how often surgeons say yes. In other words, if the AI says it's 90% confident that a case is eligible, the surgeons will likely say eligible 90% of the time. The Breyer scores, where lower is better, show that the AI's confidence was appropriate and not just yabang. A thematic sub-analysis looked closer at the 4 comparison groups with Surgeon 1. Today, we'll focus on the 2 discordant groups. There were 182 false negative cases, and these were typically borderline corneas with thin pachymetries, higher BADs, and steeper Ks. The AI was strict and uncompromising compared to Surgeon 1, who relied more on experience. Meanwhile, there were only 2 false positives. Here, Surgeon 1 saw or felt something to disqualify, which might not have been included in the Pantacam prompt. So the model's biggest sin is overcalling risk, not missing dangerous eyes. When screening, that's the direction you want errors to fall. So, what does this all imply for your practice? First, AI withholds a yes on borderline scans where a permissive human might proceed. This is arguably a good thing when screening, where ectasia risk is the monster under the bed we're all worried about. In that regard, GPT-4o makes for a useful second reader. If both you and the AI say yes, then you can proceed with your usual LASIK protocol. If you lean yes, but the model says no, then that's your cue to recheck the scans, maybe gather more data. The cost of approving a risky cornea is much, much higher than a false ineligible. In the latter, you can always just defer the case or convert to PRK or ICL. Remember, AI is a seatbelt, not a self-driving car. Of course, the study has limitations. The study was single-center, retrospective, and per eye. Only 2 surgeons served as comparators, and even they don't always agree. Perhaps most crucially, these AIs can hallucinate. They can sound confident and still be completely wrong. That's why the authors emphasize calibration, governance, and oversight if a tool like this ever enters clinical workflow. So what's next? 1. A possible prospective multi-center study across different devices and populations. We could have the AI expound on its decision reasoning to look closer into its thinking. We could also investigate newer versions of ChatGPT as they come out, or possibly compare it with other models like, say, Google Gemini. And perhaps most importantly, we want to look into real-world surgical outcomes to prove real safety gains. In conclusion, GPT-4o shows useful agreement with the refractive surgeons on LASIK eligibility, in about the same range as human-to-human agreement. It's much stricter than Surgeon 1 and almost as strict as Surgeon 2, and it tends to disqualify borderline cases rather than miss dangerous ones. So, coming back to our opening question, would you trust an AI fellow if it were extra conservative and almost always consistent? Based on this study, the sensible answer is yes. But only as a safety-leaning second reader, never as the primary decision maker. Used that way, AI isn't here to sit on the surgeon's chair. At least, not yet. It's here to prompt you, pun intended, to double-check before you do LASIK on that borderline cornea.